you should be who you want to be on your period, not who your period makes you be. So like if their
Right.
period is making them lay on the couch and that's not who they want to be, then that's not a choice. But if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's like, I get this, I like to experience my cycle or, like this day is like me communing with my inner like woman, like
Mm-hmm.
great, that's
Mm-hmm.
you. But like, what if you had a really big presentation that day and
Right.
your period came early and you felt horrific and it wasn't your choice to not be able to get off the couch? And so I think that's where the education is important.
Hi, fans. Welcome to another episode of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. We have a guest today, Margo Harrison. Margo is a board-certified OB/GYN who was an NIH-funded academic PI at the University of Colorado. Since leaving academic medicine, she has been a provider at Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains and founded a femtech consulting firm that has served over 20 venture-backed companies in women's health space in areas of clinical research, strategy, business development, and medical affairs. She is now the founder and CEO of WaveBye Inc., a menstrual health company that exists to enable women to fulfill their human potential. Today's episode, we dive into talking about her products at WaveBye, but more than that, really the why behind it, the symptoms that women are experiencing, and why girls and women might need more support and relief for their menstrual cycle symptoms, and also just understanding of their menstrual cycle health. So you're going to hear that from Margo herself, the importance of educating and empowering people about what their bodies are doing. And then we dive into like the nutrition and the ingredients that are in these products. And I do have now an affiliate discount code, Lindsay Cortez. My name, Lindsay Cortez. You can get 15% off of WaveBye products. And I share at the end why this is so unique that I have an affiliate code for this. So please listen all the way to the end because I don't have too many affiliate codes for supplement companies, but I'm very passionate about this one. And I am a user myself. I have been for 3 months. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you learn. And if you are interested in trying, you can go to waveby.co and use the code Lindsay Cortez or the links in the show notes of this episode for more information and to get that discount. Hey, fans and listeners, it's Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and your host of this podcast. Our guest today is Margo Harrison. She is an OB/GYN physician and the founder of WaveBye, which is a supplement company to help relieve symptoms of menstrual cycles. That's what we're going to dive into in today's conversation. Margo and I connected over social media a few months back as she was kind of starting to launch this company. And I was so interested in the product because, as we'll get into today, it's very like nutrition based, vitamins, minerals in there. And just, I think we have, you know, overlap in the mission of helping women with their health. So Margo, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be here. I think it's amazing. I mean, I feel like it's a landmark, even you and I just having a conversation, like how many doctors and, you know what I mean? Like have really dug into this space together, bringing their both of their perspectives. Like I think, yeah, OBGYNs are newly open to this stuff, I think. And so it's like a nice change to see.
Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but as I was going into some of the research behind some of the ingredients in your product, I pulled up PubMed. I'm doing some, and you have studies linked on the website, but I pulled up PubMed and I was actually shocked that I'm like, oh, this study about vitamin E and PMS symptoms was published in 2002. I'm like, how come nobody's talking about it? We're in 2025 now.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, the other thing is like, we do have a medication at our company. So our goal is actually to eventually get a medication supplement combo that we can get on the shelf in retail.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory for those of us who need additional treatment or who are interested in medications. So I knew about the medication piece myself. Like that was the piece that really I had seen work and was really important to me to make sure that people were taking medications properly because I feel there's a big gap in knowledge about how to use them properly. And so in doing the research and starting the company around the medication, I discovered the vitamin E piece, which I had never learned clinically.
Me
The
neither, as a dietitian.
yeah. So like the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories has been around. Like I knew it clinically, I knew it worked in practice. Then I saw, then I collected all the research and all of that. But in the process of doing that, I discovered these studies on vitamin E and was like, oh. So when we first put the product out, when you say that you're evidence-based and you believe in evidence, that's why I made the product. I believed in the evidence, but I was like
Yeah.
a little anxious to know whether or not it was like really going to work for people. And it really has, which was like
Oh,
such a
that's
good.
so cool. Yeah, that must have been the coolest feeling.
It was the coolest feeling. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing because it's also just like a great option for women.
Yeah, you truly discovered something. Okay, we've got to back up because we're getting into it and we
All
got
right.
to back up for our listeners. So let's just do a quick overview of like how long have you been a physician? Have you always specialized in women's health? I always say OBGYN because I cannot obstetrics. It's such a hard word to say. Gynecology and obstetrics.
Yes. And people have different ways of saying OBGYN too.
Yeah.
But yes, so my name is Margo Harrison. I'm an OBGYN. I trained at Columbia in New York City. So you do medical school and then you do your residency, which was in OBGYN. Then I actually relocated to University of Colorado. So I live in Denver, Colorado, and spent most of my time on research, actually. I was still a clinician working on labor and delivery and doing complex family planning. But most of my time was spent doing research, and I was really focused on labor and delivery in low and middle income countries. And then about 3 years ago, I left and started a consulting firm working with women's health companies. And I still do work clinically in complex family planning, but I started this company and I think what underlies all of it is this belief that all humans have value and that like women have value and to achieve like that value or to express that value in achieving their goals, they need to understand their sexual and reproductive health. So I really come at it like you just need to have all the information. You need to understand this part of you that people feel so disconnected from and don't have a deep understanding of. And once you have that knowledge, then everything becomes more accessible. The period becomes more accessible, fertility becomes more accessible, contraception, like accessible in terms of understanding and having those conversations and decision making. That if you have sort of a baseline understanding of what's happening on a monthly basis, then you can make cycle goals within that and sort of achieve them with that knowledge. So our mission as a company is to, when you add up all the time women are menstruating in their life, it's like 7 years that they don't really feel good or they might not feel good, right? We're not like trying to be a superhero. They literally just like want to be normal. They want to function at baseline. They don't want to feel so bad. And so the mission is to help them not feel so bad during that almost decade of their life. And then the vision of the company is, something that really differentiates our supplements and our medications is that they're taken premenstrually. So that means before period bleeding. And so if you start to track the cycle, then you start to understand the cycle. So if you're taking our products are sort of like an intro to menstrual health. And then once people start to understand it, then they really like, you must feel very in control right now. You like took our product, it had, then you stopped taking our product, you notice differences, like everything about that is empowering you to decide like what you want to feel and you don't want to, you know what I mean? Allowing you to engage and you're experimenting with yourself. And like, that makes me feel so, so good. Like you are figuring out how to achieve your own goals by managing your cycle in a way that makes you feel empowered, I think, from the outside.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I really, not until I got off the birth control pill in my late 20s did I finally start learning about my menstrual cycle. I didn't understand it. I was never really taught it. I was taught, as a girl, you get a period, and then it was like, if you don't want babies, you go on birth control. And then, like, that was it for, the first, 10 plus years of even having these reproductive hormones. No clue what's going on. So I agree with you in that first like initial idea of like, let's educate and empower girls and women to understand their health, because when you understand your health, then you're in control to make certain decisions. So, and by the way, just to be transparent, that does not mean that the decision to be on birth control is bad or wrong. I'm not saying that at all. That's a decision that we just want you to know what's going on in your health to make that choice. And then I got off birth control, and it was so eye-opening the first time I really started tracking my cycle and experiencing my hormones and symptoms that came with like my natural cycle and my natural hormones as opposed to exogenous, and including the not so nice symptoms. It's still fascinating. It's like, oh, this is a trend that I break out with a pimple during this time every month. And you know what is empowering about that is I don't feel so bad about my body image when I'm bloated or I have a pimple, or I don't feel like, oh my God, why do I have this headache? This sucks. I've got a presentation today, because it's almost like I expect it. And when it changes everything when you kind of know why something is happening to your body. So it doesn't make the headache inherently go away, although we'll talk about some strategies we might be able to do that. But it just makes it so much better to process and understand your body. You feel so much more in control. And then, so I agree with you there. And then, yes, as to be transparent with the listeners, we connected and you said, hey, I've got this product. I said, well, I've got to try it myself. I've got to do the research. So it's been three plus months. I did 2 months of having the two cycles taking your product, and then one cycle of not, as well as all the many months before. And at this point in time, I'm like, yeah, I want to continue taking it, because I notice now that I've been tracking my symptoms before taking it and then while taking it. And I absolutely noticed an improvement. So getting back to your work and kind of what led you to develop this product and this company too, I'd love to hear maybe some statistics about, like you said, like, okay, all the menstruals, like throughout from age, let's just say 15 to 50, while somebody's menstruating, although
Yep.
those ages are variable. The amount of days might actually add up to 7 years of a woman's life that they're bleeding or experiencing like symptoms of that. And I would just love to hear from you. Like, what are, as your experiences as an OB/GYN doctor, like, what are some of the difficulties that women do experience? Because I do have to say, for me personally, I think I've had mild symptoms throughout my whole life, but some women really struggle and are in a lot of pain.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like statistics, and I was just like looking to see if I could open some reports that we did earlier on to like read to you some of the actual numbers, but basically 85 to 95% of women have period pain. And then 2 out of 3 women end up missing at least 1 day of work per month. And that can go up
Wow.
to 5 days that some people are out. So I was like randomly looking on social media, and probably it knows that I'm interested in this stuff. And it showed somebody at an interview, and she was like, as a teenager, she flooded. Like she just was always had an extra pair of pants on her period in her bag. Like she was always
Mhm.
wearing pads. She said in the middle of the night, she slept on the floor so she wouldn't get blood all over the bed constantly and the sheets,
Mhm.
and that she had nausea and vomiting. So, like, yes, this can have a very profound effect on especially adolescent and young adult women. It's just, I don't know, their bodies are strong, they work well, the messages work well, like everything is working as it should. And I think it's just fierce. Like I think it can
Yeah.
be really, really bad. And I think your story reflects so many people's stories that their period is irregular and it's horrific. And so they just go on birth control. I
Mhm.
think I was like a little bit later than you, but I think I started in college, and then actually I'm still on continuous birth control because I don't want to have like any cycle changes and things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think people really do suffer. What I like to say is, and I was talking to an intern this morning and sort of like giving a talk about the menstrual cycle and showed her like this charts. And it's like what's normal and what's abnormal. And
Yeah.
literally the normal, it says cycle length 24 to 38 days. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like that means you just don't know what you're talking about. If you're like, there's a 2 week, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like there's so much variability. That's not how we should define normal. Like
Mhm.
we should say to someone at 23 days, you're abnormal, or 39 days, you're abnormal. And like at 24 and 38, you're not. And so what I think is a better reflection of normal versus abnormal is how well are you able to live your life?
Mhm.
And to me, that is the thing. If it's like, oh, I have these things, like over the years, I figured it out. It's not so bad for me. Like I do this and then I pick up the kids and like whatever. Like that's a very different story from that person than the person who's like, honestly, like I feel like I bleed for 12 days. Like I don't think my experience is similar to those around me. Like I'm taking an extra pair of pants in my bag wherever I go. Like that doesn't sound, I mean, that may be that person's life and how they're accommodating it, but it is impacting their quality of life. Like they had
Mhm.
to bring it for clothing. And so for me, it becomes like when it impacts your life in a way that feels out of your control, that's not normal. Or like
Mhm.
that's unacceptable, maybe is a better word than normal or abnormal. It's like it's not acceptable. And that is what I
Yeah.
think you need help is when you're not able to control it yourself.
Yeah. And I even just think like, I think about somebody who's working a standard, like kind of corporate job, and like you only get how many sick days a year and how many vacation days. And then 2 out of 3 women might have to take a sick day once a month just for their menstrual cycle. And what about when they actually do get mono? If they do get strep throat, it's like we're using up our sick days for just our and I want to and it's it really sucks because I want to be like, yeah, she deserves the day to rest. This is her body doing its thing that it needs to do that is healthy
Yes.
and normal to have a menstrual cycle. But it is like, well, how can we make this more manageable so that their quality of life, a woman's quality of life is good and not held back. We don't want it to ever be held back by what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. And I think your point there about like, well, maybe she wants to be at home and wants to rest and wants to like be, that to be her cycle.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's her
Yeah.
choice. Right. But if it's not her choice,
Right.
like I think the other day I sort of had a thought where I was like, you should be who you want to be on your period, not who your period makes you be. So like if their
Right.
period is making them lay on the couch and that's not who they want to be, then that's not a choice. But if
Mhm.
somebody's like, I get this, I like this is how I like to experience my cycle, or like this day is like me communing with my inner like woman, like
Mhm.
great, that's you.
Mhm.
But like, what if you had a really big presentation that day and
Right.
your period came early and you felt horrific and it wasn't your choice to not be able to get off the couch? And so I think that's where the education is important. Like you have to understand your sexual and reproductive health, and then
Yeah.
you get to make all of those decisions
Mhm.
to intervene or not intervene or get pregnant or
Mhm.
not get pregnant or like do whatever it is you want to do. But that's your body and your
Yeah.
choice to make. And so, we just want to give people the tools to be able to achieve whatever the goals are related
Yep.
to their sex.
Well, and that's where this conversation is important on the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast
Yeah.
because, yeah, when it's the day that this is the championship meet, this is the day of the race or the competition that I've been prepping for 4 months. I can't choose to relax on the couch with my heating pad. I've got to get
Yep.
up and perform my best. So I think that for girls and women in their athletic prime who are competing, that's where it's like, yeah, I don't want that to happen. Whereas somebody else might like I'm in a phase of my life. I'm mostly stay at home with the kids right now. But you know what? That's an athletic feat in and of itself.
100%. You need more attention to be watching little people
Right.
than like baby now. I mean, it's a
Sure.
lot of work.
But I can at least choose, I'm gonna stay in my sweatpants all day, and I'm gonna choose not to go to the gym, and we're just gonna play at home all day. I can make those choices, but if I were an elite athlete or a collegiate competitor where it's like, this is the schedule, this is the season, I've gotta show up 100% today athletically. I don't get the choice to wear my sweatpants on the couch. I've gotta be in my uniform, which is most likely spandex, and perform. So yeah, so that's I was looking up just some definitions as I don't think I've ever really used this term before, but so dysmenorrhea is basically painful menstrual cramps. That's the
Yep.
definition of it, right?
Various like period pain. Yeah.
Okay. And then so we can have primary dysmenorrhea, which is kind of just like these are yeah, this is period pain, but secondary is if there's something else underlying going on like endometriosis or I don't know
Absolutely.
if you yeah. So and for those things, so mostly your product, which we're going to get into next, is mostly for that primary dysmenorrhea because those other conditions have to be treated and dealt with appropriately, or could your products work for both scenarios?
So I would say that the products definitely work for both. Yeah. I mean, so you're right. Like primary dysmenorrhea is just like the cramping that you experience based on your physiology. And secondary dysmenorrhea is when you've been diagnosed with a pathology and that's what's causing the pain. So you're right. The pathology could be endo, it could be adeno, it could be that you have not necessarily pain, but you have like super heavy bleeding. Maybe you have a fibroid or like something like that. Like there's something else going on. But
Yeah.
it's all kind of a final common pathway in terms of how the messengers are going out that are causing pain, whether it's coming from endo implants or adeno implants or just regular, uterine tissue. It's not going to help somebody with secondary dysmenorrhea. So we
Okay.
are a product in the pipeline for endo specifically that we will, a supplement hopefully that will get out there at some point for women with endometriosis. But women with endometriosis have the absolute worst periods of all of us. They vomit. I mean, it's just the implants are all over the abdomen. They can be on the lung. Like
Oh,
it can give them bowel symptoms, bladder symptoms. And so the most effective of us should definitely be getting the most effective medications and treatments. And so I
good
would never
points.
say that like our products are not for those people. I
Yeah.
would say our products are for everyone. And then if you're not getting sufficient relief, you need to bump up the intervention or get some guidance and education. So eventually our goal honestly is to be a cycle health company and sort of bump people up the rungs and start with interventions that may be supplements or over the counter. And
Mhm.
then if they don't have relief with that, really work with them on next steps.
On the next
So
steps. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So let's talk about traditional methods of treatment for period symptoms and pain and cramping. So, yeah, heating pad. What
Yeah,
else?
we did a bunch of surveys too at the beginning with women to see what they're using, and it is across the board, but there's basically medical interventions and non-medical interventions. So like your medical interventions are usually going to be over the counter sort of reactive treatments like Tylenol or Advil,
Mhm.
and then your non-medical interventions is definitely heating pads, baths. Some people are trying some of these patches that are for sale, like those are like sort of supplement patches and things like that, or salves, things that you can rub on the skin over the uterus. So there's definitely a lot of like non-medical treatment, which is really around just like symptom management, making people feel better.
Yeah.
There's definitely evidence that the heating pads, like they're basically causing dilation, improving blood flow to the area. And as you sort of like improve blood flow and help release some of the contractions of the uterus, that there is some evidence behind like warmth. And so, the bath, the hot shower to definitely be going into that. There's a lot of like, I take naps, I sleep, I do these non-medical interventions, and then usually it's over the counter medications
Yeah.
reactive that people are trying to use when it gets too bad.
Yeah. And then, yeah, resting is good, but some light movement might also be good because it helps with that blood flow. So it's
Mhm.
funny. I've always found when I'm experiencing menstrual cramps, I don't want to exercise because I'm like kind of in pain and I don't have the motivation and desire. But once I do it, I actually feel better when I do
Yeah,
it.
no, 100%. That's
Mhm.
exactly right.
So the hardest part is the motivation, but once you get started, I actually do feel better doing.
Yes. Yeah.
So all right. So let's dive into your actual products. You've got three products. If you want to just kind of go over what
Sure.
those three are.
Yeah. So basically, we have what I call our backbone product, which just sounds like you had a pretty good experience with, which is really our cycle regulator. So the idea behind the cycle regulator is that you're taking the product every single day. So you're really engaging with your cycle the whole cycle round and remembering your period, even when you're feeling okay or when you're in the first half of your cycle. And you're using that like sort of daily work as preparation to improve the cycle. So the cycle regulator basically treats everything that's not pain and bleeding. So it has inositol in it, and we can go into the individual ingredients. But inositol basically when people talk about hormones, they're talking about hormones that your brain produces and then hormones that your ovary produces. And how
Yeah.
well your ovary produces hormones actually depends on how many eggs are left in the ovaries.
Mhm.
So it's a function of how many eggs are in your ovaries. You start your life with like a million and you end your life with very few. And you're recruiting cohorts of eggs every single month. And so when people are talking about hormones, a huge player in that is the actual eggs in the ovary. And so that's what perimenopause is. It's the reduction of the actual eggs in the ovary to be able to communicate back with the brain. So the inositol is helping the follicles function at their best, essentially in communication. There's magnesium oxide in it, which is the magnesium type that's very specifically evidence based for menstrual migraine prevention. There's chasteberry, which is evidence-based for mood disorders. So PMDD and PMS, there's good evidence behind that. Then we use iron bisglycinate, which is the iron that's soft on your tummy, comes with vitamin C to help absorption, and then folic acid. And the folic acid is good for cycle regulation and also interpregnancy interval, making sure that you have that on board in case you're trying to conceive or unexpectedly conceive. So that's the cycle regulator. We really target the cycle regulator towards people with abnormal cycles, which are usually adolescents, people with PCOS or irregular cycling, and then people in perimenopause. And of course, it can be helpful in menopause as well, just because it's promoting that ovarian health, the follicular health. Now, the other two products that we actually have, one is a supplement, which I think you took, and then one is a medication.
Yes.
And so the way that the uterus works is it has this like messenger pathway where it's saying cramp and bleed, cramp and bleed, cramp and bleed. And our medication works here on one of those messengers. So it's a messenger pathway, and one messenger is blocked by our medicine, and one messenger is blocked by our supplement. So we have two products that work at 2 points on that messenger pathway to block them from allowing the cramping and bleeding. And what's really important about those products is your brain doesn't text message your ovary. It's not like an immediate communication. It's communication, hormones from the brain going down, hitting receptors on the ovary, and the ovary sending hormones back. Okay, so it takes a few days and then things happen. And so if all those messengers are coming down, you're just blocking them. With our medication, they never get to the uterus to cause that excessive cramping and bleeding. That's why the period is much lighter and shorter when you take our products. So the medication and the supplement, the medication is a nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory medication. So if you don't take medicines or NSAIDs are contraindicated for you, that would not be a great option. But we have the supplement that does work well because it's working on that same pathway, and you've had success with it. But if you have sort of mild pain or you just want to try supplements, you can try this. If you really want to have a pretty heavy impact on the bleeding and the pain, you're going to want to take the medication. And then if you're really severe, you need to take both of them together.
Take both, yeah.
Because then you're hitting 2 points in the pathway, not just one.
Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindsaycortez.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindsaycortez.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindsaycortez.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. So yeah, so with those two products, and I know I said this in the beginning of the episode, but I love the names of your products. So your WaveBye, because it's like bye period pain. It's like WaveBye. And
Yep.
then so it's by Irregularity is the daily
That's
supplement
cycle.
throughout your
Yep.
cycle. And then by cramps
Is
is
the supplement
yep. And then what's the one called that has the medication?
by bad
By
cramps.
bad cramps. Yeah. So it's if it's that bad that it's like, oh, we do need at non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medication, which is so what's interesting too is that your protocol with bi cramps and bi bad cramps is that you're supposed to start taking it 2 days before you start bleeding, which means that you should be tracking your cycle to know approximately when you're going to start bleeding. So if you know, oh, I'll use myself as an example. I'm typically 26 days plus or minus, but so I would want to start taking it at day 24 just to be on the safe side. But so I was like, okay, this is your protocol, by WaveBye. And interestingly, I looked at the research and I'm like, oh, this has been known. I just didn't know it. You're not supposed to take your NSAIDs when you have the cramp. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but you ideally, for most effectiveness, should be taking it before the cramping even begins. I had no
Exactly.
clue.
Yes. And that's why we brought the product to market because
Yeah.
we need to help people take these things the right way and make a product that facilitates that adherence and supports women in taking it properly.
Yeah.
But one thing that you brought up that listeners may not relate to is like, oh, I have this relatively regular cycle. And some of them out there may have an irregular cycle. And
Mm.
so there's a couple things you can do about that. One, you can try the cycle regulator, and usually it does take 3 months to start seeing that regulation. So, one, you could try a product. If you didn't want to try a product, you can actually buy ovulation predictor strips. So, the interesting thing, the first half of the cycle is really what varies between women. And then the second half of the cycle is pretty stable across women. So, if you go buy the cheapest LH predictor strips that you can find,
Mhm.
buy 100 on, Walmart.com or whatever it is for $5, just put them on the back of the toilet and pee in the morning when you wake up. And when you're ovulating, first of all, you're going to know that you're fertile in case that's important to avoid or seek.
Mhm.
But your period is going to come 14 days later, more or less.
Mhm.
And so if you're tracking the ovulation piece, you can start our products 12 days later. And
Mhm.
that is a helpful way of, starting our products if you're less regular.
Yeah. And I do have those too. I started getting into luteinizing hormone test strips when I was having babies. I have two little boys, but I still do it now as a birth control method. I want to know, so I track my cycle, but I also do that to double check, and see where I'm at. And yeah, just for listeners, like you can buy them at any pharmacy, CVS, Walmart, and they're pretty cheap and you get like a pack of 100. And if you only use, 2 to 5 every month,
Yep. And
it's really easy to do. It's not hard at all.
no, you just pee on it. But
Yeah.
you make a really good point. Like you don't need that many. You start around like day 8 of your cycle, let's say,
Yeah.
and then hopefully it'll turn positive pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
more you track your cycle, the more you know. Like, cause I actually, this month, I was like, I think I'm probably going to see luteinizing surge today. Did it. And there it was. Because I've been tracking my cycle so much that I know really when it's going to happen. But you still want to, I like to be more specific because just full transparency, I'm doing that for natural birth control planning. So like I need to be very specific. I want to know.
No,
So yeah,
and
so that's great.
some can live for like 5 to 6 days. So
Yeah. Hmm.
if you're
Yes.
expecting it, try not to, have sex on the front end. It'll take about 24 hours for the egg to get out. And so then you're pretty good on the back end. But on the front end, the sperm can live in the reproductive tract for a while. So
Hmm.
be aware.
Hmm. Yes. I've done my research. So let's go over some of these ingredients for you. I thought I was like, okay, this is your, take it 2 days before your period. But then it's like, wait, no, this is actually like, this is for all, like, even if you just plan to take, yeah, aspirin, even if it's not your product, you should actually be taking it 2 days before your period comes. That's the most effective way. And I mean, I just don't feel like people are talking about that. So what an amazing, but if you do it with all your products, like, it just, everything makes sense. Like you said, it's the routine, it's the system, it's understanding your cycle and taking care of it all the way through. So we kind of already went into it, but I want to go back to the daily supplement by Irregularity, inositol, iron, vitamin C, magnesium, chasteberry, folic acid. So yeah, I was aware that inositol played a role in like helping PCOS symptoms And it does so by mostly kind of playing a role on your insulin release and helping
Yes.
manage or slightly lower blood glucose levels. And so it's just interesting because I'm, like, well, I don't have PCOS. Like, that's not a supplement I would need. But then I went on examine.com, a database that I have access to. And yeah, even with things like depressive symptoms during PMS, that inositol showed positive research there. Actually, all of your ingredients, I just want our listeners to hear this. I didn't read through every single study, but on examine.com database, which compiles tons of research, nearly every ingredient in your product had an A or B rating of you know, like this is decent research that does what we're claiming it to do. The biggest issue with all of the research was small sample sizes.
Yep.
We don't have enough research. So it's decent research, just not enough. And most of the symptoms too were a small to moderate improvement. But I think when you think about a woman's life, like, oh, she has PCOS and she's trying to get pregnant, like a small improvement, you're gonna take a small improvement. Or if you're that person experiencing really bad menstrual cramps, or every month you get so depressed for 3 days, like you're gonna take a small improvement, you know?
Yep.
So I was like, when I was reading the research and I was seeing examine.com's, small, moderate improvement, I'm like, I'm not turned off by this idea of a small improvement. I'm like, that's amazing that
Yeah.
somebody might feel not so depressed, or instead of feeling depressed for 3 days, only 1 day. Like that's
100%.
huge.
Yeah, and the inositol, like, I'll take that product. I told you I'm on continuous birth control. Like, I'm not really cycling anymore, but I take the regulator product because the inositol is just good for the ovaries and for ovarian longevity. And I'm perimenopausal, and I want to like be pretty and have hair as long as I can. So, and I think that product also for a menopausal group, just with everything that's going on, especially with the mood symptoms and things that happen during menopause, it's like you're putting stuff in the bank. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I liked seeing that. Yeah. Inositol. Sorry, I always say inositol. Maybe I've been saying it wrong. But
I think both are okay.
yeah, PCOS, fertility, improvement in depressive symptoms, and just regulating your cycle. And then correct me if I'm saying this wrong. Chasteberry,
No, I think that's right. Yeah.
chasteberry. So breast tenderness, reduction in PMS symptoms. Yeah. And what else? Sleep disturbances, irritability, bloating, hot flashes, mood disorders, and cramping associated with PMS, all showing, small improvement in all of those symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chaseberry, like, I think it comes from, I think it was used in the Mediterranean region for like 2 millennia. Like, it's
Mhm.
definitely something that people have used in the past, and there's really good evidence around it. It's in a lot of the like perimenopausal and cycle regulation or cycle treatment products. And so there's meta-analyses on chasteberry really showing that it is effective. Like, it causes a statistically significant difference in mood stability for people. And I think hot flashes too. So
Yeah.
definitely.
So interestingly, over the past 1 to 2 years, so my youngest child is 2 years old. So, you have this period where you're postpartum and life is just crazy and hormones are crazy. But I've been for about a year now. Like, I've been pretty stable in my health, I should say. And I've noticed over the past year that I actually get more cramping and just symptoms with ovulation
Mhm.
than I do PMS. And so what I noticed when I was taking by irregularity is that my ovulation symptoms weren't really there anymore.
Hmm.
2 months of I don't really have the cramping during ovulation. I think I felt it a little bit.
Yeah.
But so you know how I said I'm really like I'm pretty regimented on trying to figure out when I'm ovulating because I'm
Yeah.
using that as a birth control method. And normally I can also tell because of my physical, like I'm tired, I have the cramps, I have the backache, and the 2 months I was taking by irregularity, I didn't have that so much.
I'm
So
just
that was
trying
nice.
to think about, why that might be, because it really is helping the follicle be healthier in a way. And so, sometimes if you bleed when you have ovulation, that can be very irritating, very painful. The fluid can be irritating and painful. But I'm wondering if like the inositol in the system just like made it all work a little better. So like pushing the follicle out, it just got
Yeah.
taken up, and there wasn't like, like I don't know exactly what the mechanism is there, but
And
I'm
I'm not
stoked.
sure why. Yeah, I'm not sure why over the past year I've had worse ovulation pain. I'm not sure because
Uh,
I'm like, what's changed? Well, in one sense, lots has changed, but in another sense, not that much regarding my true health or diet. I was also wondering if maybe the magnesium in the product helped a little bit with that because magnesium might help like
Muscle relax.
yeah,
Yeah.
muscle relaxation. So that was really cool. And then your by cramps, so you start taking that 2 days before your expected period and the 3 days of your menstrual cycle. That
Yep.
has vitamin E, vitamin B1, and vitamin B6. And once again, I went on examine.com and was just really shocked to see these vitamins
Yeah.
help with PMS, with cramping, reducing blood loss. And again, most of these studies on Examine had either A, B, or some C ratings, which is mostly, again, it was a small sample size of each study. One study had 58 participants, another one 100 participants, another one 200. But it's like, well, you add up 8 different studies together and, this is really cool. And you know what? I just have to tell you when I first got your product and I looked at the label and I saw vitamin E 1,787% of your daily value. I was kind of like, whoa, that seems like a lot. And then, yeah, the vitamin B1, like 8,000%. I'm like, oh my goodness. But I looked at the research and your product is using the exact amount that is in research.
I mean, that's what I did to build the products was go
Yeah.
look at the research and see what's worked for people. But I
Mhm.
think you also make a good, like an important point here that like you can go buy vitamin E if you want, but in order to take the amount, it may require a lot. And so we've done that for you is put the things together that we think are really just going to have a pretty strong impact and improve. And so that you don't have to go
Yeah.
find the ones and look at their research
Or
and pull
take
up.
like six
Yeah.
different vitamin E and 3 different B1 because of how much you need. Like it's one product is right there. Oh yeah, and your packaging, just the way it's like you have one package for this is what you take every night. And this is like
Yeah.
it's just you even on your box have a tracker that you can log. You can track your cycle if you would like to. So like I think yeah, it's not as simple as like, oh, just go get vitamin E over at Walgreens. So you could do that, but you've got it all together, all the product line together and it just this is the easier, safer way. And I just love that, yeah, that, we talk about nutritional supplements and like, are they really in the appropriate dose? Are they safe? Are they effective? And so it was funny to me, just I was like, whoa, that seems like a high amount. And then like, oh, this is the amount in research. And by the way, for our listeners, I also was like, what's the upper limit of this? Are there any side effects to taking too much vitamin E? It's way more than this, where the upper limit of vitamin E is like way, way, way more than this. So to take this amount for 5 days should have no negative side effects that I could uncover.
No, I think you're right.
So that's yeah, so that was I just and as a dietitian, I'm just like, this is so cool. All these ingredients in these 2 products are just natural ingredients, you know? It's just so
Yeah.
cool. These are
Yeah.
vitamin.
No, I mean, it feels good. It feels good to have put them together. And I mean, you study these things, you've done this your entire career, and it makes me feel really good to have you like believe in our products, have
Yeah.
had a good experience with them. And so I'm very grateful.
But to tie this into how we started this conversation, like, yeah, I'm a dietitian. I study food, I study nutrients. I never learned about vitamin E and PMS symptoms ever, not ever. And so kind of how you were like, oh, as an OBGYN, you know how to treat things medically, but nobody's having this conversation. So this is just like, yeah, we need how do we bring like, yeah, dietitians learn about weight loss. Okay. That's not everything about food.
Right.
And you know how to help a woman through pregnancy. That's not everything about a woman and her reproductive health. That's not everything, right? Like
Yes.
this is so empowering. I think this product you've created is so cool. I'm so
Thank you.
excited to continue taking it myself. And I think it will help a lot of women with a lot of their symptoms. I wanted to have you on this podcast for athletes because yeah, I kind of already mentioned it. Like you might have to show up. This might be the day that you've been training for months or years and you have your period. Like, well, if you've been taking care of your menstrual cycle, tracking it, understanding your symptoms, maybe trying these products and these natural ingredients, maybe seeing a reduction in your symptoms, maybe that makes showing up on game day that much easier for you to perform your best. So I just think there could be such a role for this in the athletic space.
Yeah. And You said something I've heard people echo before, which I think probably would feel good for the athletes too. It's a lot of it is about expectations and it feeling like within your control. Like my
Mhm.
friend has started tracking her cycle and she's like, I know my period is going to start in the middle of the night tonight. And then when it actually happens, like whatever happened to you this morning, like I think today I'm going to ovulate. And to see that, it's like, I don't know. I think it would help an athlete be like, this is going exactly how I planned. So it will continue to go exactly how I planned. Like I know my body now. And so now I know exactly what to expect and accommodate for or not accommodate for. And so I think you feel that additional mental health piece that's like, not, oh, I have my period, but like, oh, I know my period's coming. It came exactly on track. I'm going to crush this.
Yes. Oh, one of my acquaintances, we've actually never met in person, but we've been in contact through similar business missions over the years. And she's just a girl athlete, female empowerment type of woman. And she shared a post on social media recently. She had signed up for a race and she knew she's like, my period's gonna come today. And she had to make a choice. Am I gonna put on a tampon before this race starts? But her period wasn't here yet. And she said, no, I'm not. I don't wanna put a tampon in if I'm not bleeding yet. I don't want that while I'm running, so I'm choosing not to. Mid-race, her period comes.
Oh,
She's
no.
running, she sees blood, and she's like, "But it was okay." She's like, "I could have
Uh,
been embarrassed. I coulda dropped out. I could have, left the race to go change my shorts." And then instead, she was like, "I went into it knowing this might happen," and she finished her race, and then she changed and took care of her hygiene, but it didn't bother her. 'Cause she
no.
was expecting it, and I was just like, "Whoa, that's a cool story," and just knowing I had that choice. Because anybody else, it coulda freaked them out mid-race,
Yes.
totally thrown them off their game, and it didn't for her.
And mortified. And that would have been a whole,
Mortified, yeah.
for her, it was like, I knew it was, I mean, it's a beautiful story. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to send her this episode or be like, give her a shout out on it. Okay, real quick, because I know your time is valuable, but Margo, is there anybody who should not take your products? Like, are there any contraindications? Because you mentioned, like, you take by your regularity, even though you do use birth control, so you could take it, like,
Yeah.
yeah, could you just tell us, like, who it's for and who it's not for?
Yes. So basically, as you said about like examine.com and like there's just not a ton of data, like these things around like, pregnancy and breastfeeding, basically you're going to look up ingredients and they're just going to say like there's
Okay.
not enough evidence for us to tell you. So, sensitivity around being actually pregnant and then being actually breastfeeding. What I would say to people who are trying to conceive is that our bioregularity with our bi cramps, the two that you took, is probably a great option because if you have pain, it'll reduce it, and then you're also going to be more regular with your cycle planning, like with
Mhm.
your timed intercourse. But yeah, the medication, obviously, if you have contraindications to NSAIDs, you shouldn't take. So people who have any like gastritis or like history of peptic ulcer disease, people who have had an allergy to NSAIDs or aspirin, people with kidney issues, like definitely if you're somebody with sort of chronic disease who knows they're not supposed to take NSAIDs, then you shouldn't take our bad groups. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
So
one out of your 3 products that has medication in it. Yep.
yes. And so if you're somebody who's like has Advil at home and takes Advil, then you're going to be okay for our product. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't like worry about like talking to your doctor necessarily. These are over the counter medications. They're not unsafe. But if you're somebody who knows that you have a condition where your doctor has said don't take NSAIDs, if you have your, inflammatory bowel disease or something like that, then you just want to be careful.
Yeah. I'm going to throw one other population there because I do have a lot of clients that are currently dealing with amenorrhea and they're working to restore a healthy cycle. Should they wait to take this product until they actually have a cycle? I would imagine, or I don't know,
I
throwing a
think this,
curveball in there for you.
no, no, no. I mean, I don't think any of our products are going to be unsafe for anyone. Like people with
Yeah.
hypothalamic amenorrhea, like more power to you restoring your cycle and figuring that piece out. I think the cycle regulator is going to help because it's going to help with ovarian function and responsiveness to the brain hormones that are going to start going out.
Yeah.
So it's cycle regulator is probably really good for that. If you're taking a product specifically for period pain and bleeding, you're not experiencing period pain and bleeding.
Right.
Doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think
Right.
the cycle regulator would probably be a nice hand in hand companion to people who are working in that space.
Yeah, and again, looking at the ingredients, I'm like, well, a lot of my clients with amenorrhea are still like taking iron, vitamin C, or folic acid because, why do they have amenorrhea in the first place? They need a bump in their nutrition. So, it's really natural vitamin, mineral, like natural ingredients. So I don't see it hurting. It's not the solution. It's not the full solution to getting your period back, but it might help with ovarian function in addition to everything they're doing to restore their cycle. So, well, great. This is great. So, because I do like this product, I do have a code that our listeners can use for a 15% off discount. It's my name, Lindsay Cortez. Just remember, Lindsay is with an E, Lindsey, and Cortez is with an S, Cortes. So, Lindsay Cortez, you can get 15% off, and you just go to waveby.com. You're on
.co.
.co because you are.
Sorry.
No, you're in Colorado. Yeah, you're not in Canada. You're in Colorado. So just the .coms are just being all taken up, huh?
Yes, exactly. That's it. Yep. So it's .co, WAVEBYE.co.
WaveBye.co.
Yeah. But if you just Google WaveBye, it's going to come up.
It's the first thing that pops up.
Amazing.
Yeah. Or maybe because I've done it so many times now, but
you can make some fun.
Yeah.
You can have like in your show notes or something with your code.
It will absolutely be in the show notes. Honestly, and I just want to say this for you and for our listeners. I'm really excited about this product. I'm saying that genuinely. As a sports dietitian, there's like 1,000 supplements that I could be recommending. And I really don't. And there's, so many discount affiliate codes. And I've had some here and there, but it's like, protein powder. Sure, I've got some discount codes, but there's also there's 20 different protein powders that are great. There's more than that. There's tons of protein powders that are good. There's tons of different brands of creatine. And I'm not specific to one because there's so many that could work. And then there's so many bad supplements out there. Just this is a ridiculous dose and there's no efficacy to it. And the reason I wanted to have you on and the reason I have an affiliate discount code is because I don't know any other products that are offering this. And I also feel that this is needed. I'm you could take a multivitamin, but you know what? Or you could just have a whole foods diet to get what you need. But I'm but this, if you've tried the heating pads, if you try resting, if you've tried the aspirin and you're just still struggling with cramping and it's hard to get through this workout or you have to take a day off work, try this because there's nothing else that's really comparing to this. And I'm a huge fan of a great diet, but you're not going to get 400 IU of vitamin E through your diet for these 5 days. You're just not. So try this supplemental product. So I really say that authentically. This is such a cool product that this is really the first time I really think this is the first time I've had somebody who's the founder of a supplement company that I'm I want people who are struggling with their menstrual cycle symptoms to really try this. Okay, one last final thing. I did notice an improvement in my very first cycle. There's some ingredients that you do see the most improvement if you take it long term, right?
The inositol, yeah. So the magnesium oxide hopefully will prevent some menstrual migraine. The chasteberry should work. The inositol, I think, is working for people right away. I have an OBGYN who's tracking her cycles and she sent me she doesn't always ovulate, and she sent me her natural cycles tracker and she's ovulating first time trying the product. So I think you had improvement over those first 2 cycles with your monthly regulator. So I don't want to say it's not possible. I just want to say if you're somebody with PCOS, you may want to buy the 3-month prepaid and get the 3 months because it may take you those 3 months to get there. Mm-hmm. And then you want to maintain.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, when you go on WaveBye and you purchase the CI, this is something that you have a cycle every month. This is something that you want to incorporate into your lifestyle. So yeah, you can do a 3-month package so that you don't have to stress about it every month and start and stop and things like that, and subscription service there. So that's super helpful. All right, Margo, I hope this takes off. I hope that women get the help they need to have more pleasurable experiences with their body rocking and rolling, doing what it's supposed to do.
Thank you, Lindsay. I feel very emotionally overwhelmed. I appreciate your support and I appreciate how deeply you went into the research and looked at it. And I think that's what it takes to build trust. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to build trust through you. And I do hope that people have a similar experience to yours and feel better and feel more in control. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindsaycortez.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindsaycortez.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.